I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. I know you're getting ready to head over to another news event, but wanted to first introduce from the Drug Enforcement Administration, John Donnelly. He's a resident agent in charge of D.E.A. Also with me, Lieutenant Don Gross, who's now over our Special Investigations Bureau. And we're going to be unveiling a case today that has a significance not only in the Valley, but significance in other cities across the United States in terms of major narcotics dealers that are now in custody. And back in the beginning of August 2008, we were contacted by a confidential informant who informed our major narcotics investigators that he had been in conversation with a major drug trafficking organization out of a city called Algodones, Mexico. And we learned that the individuals from Algodones, Mexico were in fact major drug traffickers, and that they had been supplying large volumes of crystal methamphetamine not only to the Central Valley, but had also been supplying methamphetamine across the United States to some other larger cities. We also enlisted the assistance of the Drug Enforcement Administration at that time to work with us on this case. Subsequent to that, our confidential informant introduced two of our undercover investigators from the major narcotics unit to an individual who we determined to be Felipe Munoz, 31-year-old Hispanic out of Indio, California. Our major narcotics detectives began to negotiate with this individual for the purchase of 30 pounds of crystal methamphetamine. We were going to purchase that for $17,500 a pound, so about $525,000 for this transaction. It was subsequent to that we set up through a series of phone conversations and meetings with the suspects. We were able to set up a meet in Fresno this past Saturday on August 30th, and in fact 3 vehicles showed up with 4 suspects and met our confidential informant at Elm and Jensen in Fresno. 4 suspects were taken into custody after we determined that they did in fact possess 15 pounds of crystal methamphetamine. That crystal methamphetamine had been hidden in a compartment that I'll talk about in a 2002 Honda Accord. The suspects were in fact taken into custody for transportation of narcotics, as well as conspiracy and possession of a vehicle with a compartment. And there'll also be significant enhancements in terms of sentencing because of the large amount of narcotics that they had in their possession. The drugs were actually found in the rear passenger side panel of that vehicle that was used to deliver the crystal methamphetamine. And there had to be actually a sequence of events that occurred before that panel could be activated. In fact, the engine had to be, the key had to be turned on, and then once it was, the defroster turned on, the lights of the vehicle turned on, and then a magnet had to actually be waved across a cup holder, which then allowed that compartment to be opened on the passenger side. And within that compartment was 15 pounds of crystal methamphetamine. Has a street value of about $450,000. That is very conservative in terms of the street value. We were going to purchase the 15 pounds. Initially we negotiated for 30, but they were only able to bring 15. Said that if that went well, then they would do larger amounts in the future. Obviously this one didn't go so well for them. Arrested are Felipe Munoz, age 31. He's out of Indio, California. He was the primary negotiator during the entire investigation. He was taken into custody at the scene. Also a second suspect, Francisco Liera, age 29. He is out of Cathedral City. He was actually a driver of a third vehicle that came to Fresno, what we refer to as a cover vehicle. And then the third suspect is a Juan Perez Jr., age 21. He's also out of Indio, California. And suspect Perez was the driver and the lone occupant of the what we refer to as the load vehicle, the vehicle that was carrying the crystal methamphetamine. And the fourth suspect is the local facilitator. It's an individual named Armando Gallardo. He's 27 years of age. He lives in Reedley, California, and he's the local connection and actually facilitated, if you will, the drug deal in the Fresno area, and we believe is largely responsible for a significant number of these types of transactions in the Central Valley. We've also identified a fifth suspect that is involved in this drug trafficking ring, and this individual, his name will not be released today. He is a supplier out of Mexico, a major supplier, and D.E.A. at the present time is seeking an arrest of him as well as extradition. And so we do not want to do anything that would compromise that. After the arrest of the four individuals that we have, there was two search warrants that were served, both of them in Reedley. One of them at 1755 8th Street, which is a window tinting business that is owned by Armando Gallardo, and his residence as well of 1890 East Jefferson. And today the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, their narcotics unit, will be serving a third search warrant in Cathedral City regarding this investigation. This is a significant case, not just because we were able to remove 15 pounds of crystal methamphetamine from the streets, or the fact that we've taken four major drug dealers off of our streets that were responsible for supplying the Central Valley, but also because these individuals are part of a drug trafficking organization out of Mexico that is responsible for supplying and continue to be responsible for supplying crystal methamphetamine across the United States. Our investigation has determined that they have in fact supplied crystal meth to Chicago, Atlanta, and Houston, and all throughout California. Currently, the United States Attorney's Office is reviewing this case, and it is our hope that we will be able to pursue this through federal prosecution. It's always our desire to take cases federally if we possibly can, because there is a significant increase in the amount of time these individuals will serve behind bars in federal prison should the U.S. Attorney's Office be involved in that prosecution. Since January of 2008, this year, and I want to brag a little bit about our major narcotics unit because they are second to none. In working in partnership with the Drug Enforcement Administration, they have seized over 150 pounds of crystal methamphetamine from our streets. 150 pounds of crystal meth with a wholesale value of about $2.6 million. And conservatively, that is well over $5 million in terms of street value. And they've also been responsible for seizing $900,000 in cash this year from drug dealers in the Fresno area or individuals that were dealing drugs in Fresno. And that is significant, and it fully demonstrates our commitment as an agency to having a drug-free Fresno, because we know that these drugs that are on this table before you today ultimately are distributed throughout our community to some of our youth, and is largely responsible for the crimes that are committed in order for these individuals to supply their drug habit. And so removing the source all the way to Mexico is a significant accomplishment for our agency.